This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right, All About Home Construction. Good morning, man. How's it going, Randy?
Good. A little cold today. How about yourself?
A little chilly when we're recording this. It's like single digits, 9 degrees, a little bit of wind blowing around, but that's why we live in the high country in January, right?
That's it. And we measured ours this morning, 7.5 inches.
It's
and one of the
yeah, we're probably around that same 6 to 8 inches. It's hard to say here because we got a lot of wind on top of this hill, and so a lot of us moved around. In fact, there was about a foot on when the kids were looking out and trying to go outside on the porch. There was about a foot up against the door. So yeah, it's been quite windy here.
Well, we had some friends, Texas, Kansas Chapel got about a foot. Other side of Boone, they said they got about 4 inches, but they had a lot of wind too. See, so it is moving around.
Yeah, it's for so long we've been talking about in the high country, like, oh, when are we going to have a real winter? And I would say that this classifies as a real winter the last couple weeks, huh?
Yep. Well, just about. When like when I grew up with, we got out for Thanksgiving, then we had missed a week or two before Christmas, then a week or two in January. And that's the reason we didn't get out to June 15th every year.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right now that's the local schools, all of the high country schools and the 3 or 4 counties surrounding us have missed several days, but then that's the whole remote day thing. That's the new way to keep us from going on spring break or on Saturdays. So I don't know. It's a trade-off. I like the virtual option, but that's just my personal preference. But
how's that going for you?
I see it going really good. I mean, we see kids engaged all the time, and it's just like anything, whether it's in-person school or virtual school, it is what you make it. And if you're encouraging your kids to get on and your kids want to learn, then they're going to do better. But that same thing goes if you encourage your kids to learn in school and then they go to school, they're going to do better. So yeah,
that's right. School starts at home.
I'm a big proponent of that. When the kids hear you complaining because they've got remote school, they're not going to do anything today. Guess what? They're probably not going to do anything that day. But if it's all it's just like how you sell it to kids. I mean, that's the way kids work. But anyway, that's all.
Turned his computer off the other day.
Nice.
I'm glad he's in kindergarten.
It happens. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It is what we make it, right? I mean, we all learn different ways, and we can all learn that way if we want to.
That's it.
I'm just like we can all read a book if we want to. But anyway, that's why we have podcasts like this, though, right? So you don't have to read, and you don't have to. You can work around it while you listen. That's why we got this.
Yep, that's right.
But what's been going on in your world? I'm sure the construction has slowed down the last couple of weeks due to the cold weather. But how's it looking?
It has. We got to work a couple days this week. Last weekend, like I said, we went to Mom's house, to check on that tree that hit the house, and we fared pretty good. Considering the size of the tree. I sent you pictures of it and stuff, but we finally got 2 days into work this week. We actually had a new one this week, and they took the top railing off the deck. Like I said, this house been built in 2012, and the 6x6s, even though they were covered with a 2x6 on top of them, were dry rotting from the inside out. So now we're going to have to replace all the railing.
So is this the same one that we talked about last show where it's kind of rotting out around the
house band and stuff? Yeah, sure is. And it just keeps getting deeper.
Oh.
And so you're looking at 11-year-old treated lumber that's failing.
And I mean, I don't want to rehash the last couple shows we've talked about it, but again, do you think this is an inferior product or improper installation, or maybe a little of both?
No, not well. We do have improper installation, but the improper installation on it was where they bolted it to the deck bands,
Okay.
not from the standard construction practices. Okay, and like I said, it's got a railing on top of it, but it's dry rotting underneath the railing. See, the railing was coming apart on top, which we knew we had to replace.
Right.
But as a rule of thumb, we know we've had to replace decking boards over the years. That's gone bad within 8 years, but we've not had to replace any floor joists
Mm-hmm.
or deck posts. I got a friend of mine over here in Boone that we put railings on his house, and we always use 6x6 posts. We never use a 4x4. We never use a 4x6. And this last summer, well, this deck is 7 years old, 6 years old. And he said, I can already stick my pin through the 6x6 on the side of it because it's already rotted. So now it's got to be
No way.
cut out and replaced.
Oh.
And, the thing about it is, I don't know an alternative for it. And that's pretty bad in a construction field that we do not have something to turn to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are eligible. Contractors are able to get the arsenic treated material.
Right.
And so one thing, I did a little research on it, and it was speculated on because of the arsenic poisoning and kids playing in playgrounds and stuff,
Right.
that one out of 1,000,000 would die.
Yeah.
But so far, one hadn't died.
Well, and we don't see it on the playground equipment like we did when I was a kid. I mean, that was the big thing. You'd go in and they'd have these big, elaborate wooden playground sets, especially public parks and stuff. But you don't see that anymore. So, aside from a deck and porch, what exposure does a if you will, an average kid actually get to treated lumber anyway?
Well, not unless they're playing on it.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like it's not like it was in the 80s and 90s, even where you had the playgrounds and you had more. I mean, there's so many other products for decking, boards and things like that I mean, this is a complete conjecture, but I would say that kids today aren't coming in contact to the actual, physical treated lumber. In other words, touching the treated lumber.
No, they're not.
Like they did when we were,
Kids aren't going outside and playing anymore.
Right.
The electronics is taking over what they're doing. You take my grandsons, well, Cotton right now, he'd rather be out on the sidewalk drawing with chalk than sitting on the deck and working.
Right.
So each child's a little different.
Yeah, but I would just say, I don't know. It just, I don't know. That's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, but something's got to be done because products just aren't lasting. And so much of the pressure treated lumber, the reason you chose pressure treated was because you wanted to stay there. And it's a lot of times some kind of structural piece to the house. And so, if it starts to fail, that's not a good thing.
Correct. Well, as I mentioned before, I've been reading more and more about deck tape.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a couple of years ago, we did a deck where they called for deck tape, but the reason they called for the deck, and what I mean by deck tape is a tape that goes over top the floor joist to keep the inferior, or not inferior, but the other material touching it from oxidizing. Okay.
Yeah.
And this happened to be aluminum channel deck that we did. Okay. So, but now that we found this problem down in Caldwell County, I just told the homeowner, I said, we're going to have to tape every joist.
Sure. Well, we're not going to take a chance again, right?
That's right. We've replaced the floor joists on it that needed replacement, but now we're taping the joists before we go back, even though we're going to use Trex.
Mm-hmm.
The point of it is once the decking goes down, there is so much moisture that is trapped underneath. Okay?
Sure.
You also get moisture that comes up from dew in the mornings when, from natural evaporation from the rain. So does it truly ever dry out? probably during a drought.
Yeah.
But no, it don't.
Sure. Well, and
I
then, you know, we got that. We did a whole show a few weeks back on decking and pressure treated wood and all that. So, of course, last week we talked about the rot. So I definitely think people should go back and listen to those 2 episodes, and it'll make a lot more sense what we're talking about.
Well, you know, codes as a whole has addressed moisture content in everybody's house, new construction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it seems like they've sort of kind of let it go on the outside.
Because of that, right? It is the outside.
Correct. I mean, the house wrap takes care of under your side and stuff like that. But
Right.
you know, I've never worked on a house that the house wrap's been put on backwards.
I've heard about it though.
But I've seen it. I've gone by and seen a house that is put on backwards.
Yeah.
And you know, it all gets back to reading the manufacturer's specifications.
There you go. That's fair. So, well, I'll tell you what, Randy, let's take our first break and we'll come right back and get into the main topic of the show. All about home construction. Right. We'll be right back. Obviously, by listening to this podcast, you see the value of All About Home Construction. Well, by joining our listener supporter community, you're not just tuning in, you're standing with us as we are able to support and fuel our passions of the construction industry. As a listener supporter, you'll enjoy exclusive perks, including hearing your name, or maybe even your business name, on our show. So please go to our Spotify website. The link will be in the show notes, and join. You can join for as little as $1 one-time fee, $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever you think you can afford. Every single penny helps to keep this show going as we can continue to grow and do lots more things. Thanks a lot. And again, more importantly, thank you for listening to this. All right, All About Home Construction. Thanks for listening to us and here on the radio and on the podcast. And of course, you know, Randy, again, we mentioned during the first break there, or first segment before the break, we talked a little bit about some kind of reference some of the shows that we've done. You can always go back and listen to those podcasts on wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. So,
well, you know, the thing about it is we've had a few shows on the treated lumber, and no, we're not harping on it. But the thing about it is, you know, I do more remodel than new construction.
Right.
So I get to see a lot of stuff out there that a lot of people don't see.
That's it.
And I prefer remodeling. So,
well, speaking of remodeling, you know, on these cold, snowy days, we're stuck in the house and we're playing on the internet because we got nothing else to do. And, you know, or maybe we're watching some TV show that's talking about houses and stuff. But let's talk a little bit about some renovations. Now, we know that if I hire you as a contractor to come in and completely renovate a room or even the house itself, right? Big money. I mean, we're, you know, sometimes it costs as much to do that as it does to add on or to even almost build in some cases, right?
Well, yeah, a remodel is twice. Okay.
Right.
Once you got a demo, then you got to put it back. So it's that's what people don't understand. Okay. Right. About remodeling. But you know, it's what we talked about earlier or before the show is things that homeowners can do on their own to help their stuff.
That's what I was wondering, you know, like what are some budget friendly things that, you know, because we've invested in our houses. We own them. We invest in them. We want them to stay good. We want them to look good. But we also like change. I mean, you know, sometimes we want to update something and things like that. And so I thought it'd be a fun show then to talk about some, again, like you said, some things that homeowners can do themselves, or just some budget friendly, if you will, home improvement projects, renovations. And I mean, you know, there's a lot you can do, like you said, do a lot yourself. But even I think all of these we'll talk about in terms of getting it hired out are going to be on the lower end of things rather than, you know, a full remodel.
Correct. And the number one is attic insulation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, first off, if you go in an attic, you pull your stairs down, Some people walk up a set of stairs and have a door there.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And which that's the finer homes. But the point of it is, we've seen attics with blown in insulation. Okay. And we've seen them where they did improper baffle installation. And when you do that, what will happen is the wind coming up through your soffit will blow that insulation off the drywall,
Right.
or whatever type of ceiling you have. Well, you need to check that periodically. And if that does happen, then you need to go back and put some rigid insulation in, take your blown in insulation, slide it back, and put, you can't necessarily put R38 in it. It depends on the type of, if you can't get down there to put a baffle in, then you can't put R38.
Okay.
But you can put R19 in.
Mhm.
Okay. And make sure your R19 sets to the outside of your plate, top plate.
Okay.
All right. Then what you can do is you can step in about another 3-4 inches and put another layer R19 in. All right. Then you can take your blown in insulation and put back against it. That should stop it from blowing out.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's a little labor intensive, and it might be harder for older people to get down there, but for no more than it costs, you could be saving quite a few dollars over a 5-year period.
To do this properly by yourself, you're probably looking at what, $1,000, maybe $2,000.
Well, it depends on average about $1 a square foot.
Okay.
For materials. Okay.
Okay.
And that's just a guesstimation because first off, I don't know what your house looks like.
Well, I mean, that's right. That's a hard one to say. But again, this is sort of that lower end things that you can do. And assuming it was done correct the first time. And now, and I would say too that, and I don't know this, you correct me, but I would say the insulation in the attic probably gets a lot more dust and compression than what's in the walls because it's exposed typically on the top side.
Correct.
So
and the more dust and dirt, the less R value.
Yeah, exactly. You're compressing it, less R value is clogging it up. Assuming you don't really take out what's there, you're adding to it. Anything you do is going to help, right?
Correct. Well, you hit on a very important point right there. Like my 64 model house, okay, it only had R11 insulation in it, okay? So R11 insulation wasn't very thick. So what we did was, because we couldn't get in there and put baffles in, all right, we went with R13 to fill up the floor joists.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Or rafters, excuse me, or ceiling joists. All right. Then what we did was we came back in and then we put R38 on it crossways.
Right.
All right. So we just perpendicular to it. So we have a pretty well insulated attic here. Okay. But the problem stems from R11 in the walls.
Yeah.
So eventually the only way I'm seeing commercials out there of companies that are now putting low expansion foam in the walls to compensate for your thin insulation.
Yep.
That's fine on a wood house. Okay. Wood siding, because they can drill it. They can put their
pop in, right.
And then they can put a pop in. But see, I have a brick house.
Yeah.
So it'd be hard for them to do it in a brick house.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't know exactly where my studs were.
Yeah.
So for me in my house, I need to take one room at a time and take all my paneling down, which we have paneling, and then re-insulate it, and then forget the paneling, go back with drywall that way.
Right.
And so there's a difference between labor intensive and doing your own. So.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about insulation, I would imagine that it would be helpful to do it if you got a crawl space, at least to look at it and check it and do some minor repairs, because it's probably sagged at some points and things like that. So even if you don't do a full replacement, at least go under that doesn't really fall under the renovation, I suppose, but maintenance. But still, I think that'd be a good thing while we're talking about insulation to kind of remind people of.
Well, there you go. You're talking about a crawl space, okay? And what causes insulation to sag? Moisture.
Gravity and moisture, gravity,
Moisture.
and yeah.
From the ground. And if you do get it, you get in your basement, your crawl space, even your basement, okay, you can have a crack in your concrete floor.
Right.
All right. Or like that house we talked about out in Elk Park, where they put the wrong kind of expansion joint around the whole outside of it and had blackboard, and blackboard rotted out. So now it's allowed moisture behind the walls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now it's coming into the ceiling, and that insulation was moisture laden.
Right.
So we had to totally take it all out. It was non-usable.
No.
Because it lost its R value.
Well, let's move on from the attic, and another thing that I think, and this is probably what I would say is the easiest renovation, and probably for this on the scale of things, one of the cheapest renovations, and that's just painting the interior.
Right.
Like that's something that basically any homeowner can do. Repair any drywall they need to repair, and then just change the paint colors. That's a pretty simple one that I think we don't think about as a renovation, but when you're looking at sprucing up a house, that's one of the easiest things to do, and one of the first things that a lot of real estate agents will tell you to do.
Right. And then there you go. Don't buy paint primer mixed.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to change color.
Yeah.
Everybody, golly, I can buy that paint primer for $19 a gallon.
Yeah.
And right behind you, you got green paint there in between those windows. How many coats of that you gonna have to put on it?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between a painter and a DIY person, because a painter wanted to paint it one time, where a DIY person will paint it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that's even more important when you're in the bathroom with things like moisture. I've seen it fail more because of the primer in the in that bathrooms than in the living rooms.
A lot of people like Kills
as
a primer. I'm a Zinsser person because that's what we used in commercial.
Right.
Because even though Zinsser is a water-based product, once it dries, you can't cut it off with a pressure washer.
Yeah.
And so we use it on exterior too. And we've had houses, because homeowners couldn't decide what color paint they had, sat out there for 2 years with nothing but the primer on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just plan. Planning is the biggest thing that is misunderstood by people. And just because you look on these TV programs that tells you how to do everything, it don't always work that way.
Oh, come on.
HGTV. You don't know how many people have told me, well, I watched HGTV and I know how you're supposed to do it. And I'm going, well, guess what? You need to learn how to do it yourself. You have a nice day.
That's why I watch, shows like This Old House, because they really do show you how. So see, I'm an expert contractor only because I watched This Old House, not because I actually took a test.
Well, there ain't but one thing I've seen on HGTV, and that's Helms Homes.
Yeah.
Where he goes in and repairs homes.
Yeah.
And he puts it back the way it's supposed to.
Well, because they're looking at, it's HGTV is just entertainment, right? I mean, let's face it, we're advertising and entertainment. But all right, well, let's move on, because we want to get through some of this other list here. Another easy one, relatively easy, is to change out that front door, or to replace the front door.
It is, and it's not that hard. You got to have a good level. And
well, and I wouldn't do it this weekend, but
Right. Well, we have repaired doors like it, but now let's take Boone, North Carolina. Okay. Most of your steel doors that you buy at the box stores, I can't install.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that door is only rated for a 90-mile-an-hour wind load.
Right.
All right. Now it is a steel door, and I have watched them be manufactured, and they're manufactured good. But I prefer a fiberglass door.
Right.
All right, because the R value is greater on it.
Well, I was gonna say, it's gonna be a warmer door. You're gonna get less drafts, also, right?
And when you buy a door with an adjustable threshold on it, not a fixed threshold. We all grew up with doors where we had to put the thresholds in.
Right.
I mean, the industry has made changes enough that's great. But when they did it, they put their own thresholds in it, but they weren't adjustable. Then, hear about, your high end doors had adjustable thresholds, but now they're putting them in the lower price doors.
Sure.
And, but doors are not as cheap as they used to be because, golly, we used to, like my basement door when I moved here 23 years ago, no, 27 years ago, was a French door, steel door for $299.
Right.
Well, it needed replacement 10 years ago. And I hadn't done it yet, which I want to. What I did was I took out a garage door and put the French door in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Framed it down and put a wind in it, so for ventilation, if I close the door. And but it was a cheap door, is what I need.
Sure. Yeah.
But
well, again, I think if you go back and change that out, it's a solid renovation, and again, we're talking more renovations, not necessarily to replace something that's failed in this, but something that just to upgrade and to spruce up the house. And again, I think a door, and I think while you're at the door, right, look for a little curb appeal, like what's outside the door. Is there a porch or a stoop or something? And what
right.
can you do to that area to kind of spruce that up as well? And sometimes that's, it's simple, like I said, just painting. But even adding some of the like faux brick, for instance, or rock, some of those are kind of, again, for the cost, relatively inexpensive. That adds a lot of appeal to the house and the entranceway.
Correct. Well, you hit on a good one there. But on a fiberglass door, they go anywhere from 800 to 1,500. Okay. Mm-hmm. But there you go. You hit on another one. You're going to put a new door in. Use low expansion foam. Be sure to use your shims, okay, to make sure your door's stable. And put your 3-inch screws in your jams. Put your 3-inch screws in your striker plate and stuff. That keeps your house from being broke into. They can't kick those.
Right.
And but we're getting ready to do a brick surround in a kitchen, and they're 1/2-inch brick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you can take, like you said, if a homeowner has an access way to their house, front porch there, you can actually put an accent band around it, or if you have corners in it and stuff, and you can go by and put the brick on, or you can put the fake rock on.
Yeah.
And they're not that hard. And if you make sure, like the rock, if you put it tight enough, you don't have to go out in between it. Get dry stack rock.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the brick, if you use it, you're going to have to learn how to use a pastry bag to grout in between.
Yeah.
But make sure you put something down for protection on your concrete porch or your wooden deck, stuff like that.
Yeah. And don't cut the corners, right?
And then that way, that's a quick fix that you can do in just a couple of days that will improve your house quite a bit.
Nice. All right. Well, we're at the door. Let's continue on outside. And again, this isn't a winter project, but another simple project is landscaping, I think. So many times we spend time on our garden and we spend time on the yard, fertilizing and mowing and things like that. But look at those feature ways that, outdoor lightings and even planting, right? Like choosing perennial plants over annual plants, and keeping up with those. So every couple of years split those. That's going to be a good budget friendly renovation. And again, it's more of an outside renovation, but it's going to add to that curb appeal.
It will. And, you're getting to see more and more people on their landscaping, and it depends on the side of their house where they're starting to plant vegetables around their shrubbery.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of that. Being the history guy, I think back, and I think this is kind of funny, and not to get off topic now, but I'm going to.
That's all right.
We had these colonial kitchen gardens when colonial America, And it's what it was. It was a small garden that had your herbs, your herbs and spices and all the small things, some onions and stuff like that. And then World War II came out and we had these victory gardens, which was not much different than those colonial kitchen gardens, and then I don't know. So I think if we're swinging back over to that, and I think that COVID summer helped a lot of that, because a lot of people were spending time in the
Yep.
gardens that year. And if you go think back, it was hard to find even a pack of beans in the seeds in the store.
Well, you think if you're going to grow cucumbers or tomatoes, something that will grow on a trellis, and you grow it in your landscaping because you already got it mulched,
Yeah.
you don't have to hoe it.
Yep. No, I'm a big fan of that, and that's if I had the time, but it really doesn't take a lot of time. But anyway, that's that. I think that you're right. I love that idea, and
Well, that's when you put your mulch down in the wintertime, and that protects your ground.
right.
The only thing about mulch is it makes the ground acidic.
Yep.
All right. So whatever you're going to have to plant, you're going to have to put lime around it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. To drop the pH factor.
Unless you want a bunch of blueberry bushes.
Yep. Well, you can go with blueberries now. Blueberries,
go.
they grow real good. So there you go.
And I think they look cool too.
And there's about 10 or 12 different varieties of blueberries that come on every month. So there you go. There's your little garden on the side.
There you go. That's the way we roll. All right. Well, we got a couple more minutes before the break. So one thing while we're outside is lighting. I know there's lots of solar options out there now, and some of the solar lighting now is a lot better than it was even 10 years ago, especially looking back 20 years ago. But if we wanted to put in some kind of lighting, is it a hard task in terms of running wire and cable and then actually hooking that up, or is it really as simple as just kind of burying a rated cable, a rated wire, and then just being able to plug it into an existing outlet already?
You can. And the thing about it is most of that is low voltage. Okay. So that's DC power. All right. And I would rather prefer that over the solar lighting, because every solar light I've ever bought only lasts about 3 to 4 months. All right. And I bought some from Home Depot here a few years ago. I'll go on my porch because I have 4x4 uprights. And they were, when they lights come on, they'd have deer and they'd have birds and stuff like that. And I've noticed that they've started going out. And the batteries, they're a rechargeable battery, which they have to charge in sunlight.
Right.
So I took them apart and put new rechargeable batteries in. The problem wasn't with the batteries. The problem was with the LEDs are burning out.
Making out.
They advertise that these LEDs is going to burn so long. Well, they're not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Well, we're seeing.
I paid $18 for these bulbs in the VFW, or I didn't. The auxiliary did, and I was looking at one, and they're supposed to have a 25,000 hour lifespan. Okay. I got to looking at one the other day, and it was dimming. It's not even as bright as the pigtail fluorescence.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be failure in everything. So
well, there's some of those. By the way, there's a hack to fix some of those LEDs when they burn out, and it doesn't always work. But something about, and you have to YouTube this, but you can take off the cover and basically bypass one of those little LED modes.
Yeah, you got to be real good with the solder iron to jump.
So I don't know. I've not tried it, but you have to let me know how it works out. So
well, I'm gonna have to try it because I bought me a little teeny tip soldering iron so I could try to repair them. It's just the challenge.
I love it. That's the way we roll. All right, Randy, let's take another break. We'll come right back right after these messages.
Calling all hungry heroes. It's time to fuel up for the day at the VFW's all-you-can-eat breakfast. That's right. Every first Saturday of the month from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., you can enjoy a heaping helping of crispy bacon, juicy sausage, perfectly cooked eggs, golden hash browns, biscuits and gravy, and so much more, only for $15. Whether you're a veteran, a family member, or just a friend of the VFW, you're welcome to join us for this delicious tradition. Come share stories, laughter, and good company while you fill your plate with all your breakfast favorites. Don't miss out on the VFW's all-you-can-eat breakfast every first Saturday of the month from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. See you there.
All right. Well, welcome back. All about home construction here in WATA. And of course, on the podcast, we're recording this show on a snowy day when we're stuck in the house. And it's 9 degrees. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's 10 degrees now. We're at double digits here at the house. So
I'll have to check and see what we are here. It says we're at 10.
So setting under 6 inches to 20 feet of snow, and talking a little bit about some budget friendly renovations. Now, I'm gonna say this one, and everyone's gonna be like, probably turn it off because this is not what you think of when you think of budget friendly. But there's a lot of kitchen renovations that you can do, small things that are budget friendly. Now, the reason I said that is so many times when we say budget friendly, we don't think of kitchen because it's expensive to completely renovate a kitchen. It's probably the most expensive room in the house to renovate.
It is. And but you hit on a topic there, and which we have done here at the house. See, my cabinets were built in 64.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And they were built in place cabinets. All right. The doors were all done here. And so Deb decided that she was going to clean them. Okay. And she did. And the oil-based urethane over the years turns yellow.
Yes.
Okay. So instead of sanding the cabinets down, she washed them down with Murphy's oil soap. She give them a light sanding with steel wool, and then she replied urethane and added new hinges.
Yep.
Okay. Well, your hinges is probably going to be the most expensive part of it because an average depends on the type of cabinet hinge. If it's a setback hinge or, like our cabinets are, got the little 3/8 rabbet all the way around. So you use that. That's what I call an offset hinge.
Yep.
And hinges can go anywhere from $3 all the way up to about $6. All right. Now, if you were to leave your frames there, you can actually get online and buy doors, new manufactured doors. And if you do that, then you need to sand your cabinets.
Yeah. But again, that's a lot cheaper than buying complete new cabinets.
Correct. I hadn't priced any doors out, but there's companies out there that will manufacture the doors to your size.
I know painting cabinets has kind of gone in and out of style. Is that back in yet? Do you see a lot of painted cabinets?
Yeah, believe it or not. People like the point of the cabinets being painted because they can change them down the road.
That's where I was going. Is painting over one will change the look of your kitchen completely.
And we had a house, Kendall Cowan house we finished in 2008, and we bought maple cabinets. Oh, they were so pretty.
Yeah.
And then the homeowner said, "Well, Randy, I'd like to paint them green."
No.
So I happen to have a very good painter.
There you go.
And he did it, and he took them all apart. Now he painted them on the walls, okay, but not the doors. He painted them in the shop. But
nice.
To this day, there's still a good looking set of green cabinets.
There you go. Well, hey,
I know that there's maple underneath.
That's what they want.
But then again, with paint, you're not limited to your doors and your styles being the same color.
Right. You can do accents and change. Yeah. No, I like that idea.
I mean, it's left up to your imagination on what you want to see in your cabinets.
And I've seen a lot of people switching over again, going back to the HGTV stuff, is you see a lot of like the open cabinets where where they don't have the cabinet doors on them. But I'm personally not a fan of that. But you see that in in the stacked dishes and stuff. But I don't have matching cups and dishes, so that's not for me. I got 4 kids at the house though that break them all the time. So,
well, you were probably like us. You had that real high Watauga High School plasticware
yeah,
cups.
exactly. All right, well, so moving on from the cabinets, but staying in the kitchen. Another thing that I think you can do, and this applies for the bathroom too, and that's changing out the faucets. Putting a different hardware, and I'm gonna throw in hardware too for any doorknobs, and we've already mentioned cabinet doorknobs, but changing out those faucets and that any kind of hardware in there is going to make it's an easy project that's going to make a lot of difference.
Well, you can probably save your sink set. Okay. And depends on the age of your house. The older homes used to have low faucets. Now a lot more people's into the higher faucets.
Yeah. Well, and then those that
have the wand all-in-one feature.
Yeah. And more you're getting away from that the spray wand and the faucet, and more and more you're starting to see that one unit instead of the 2 pieces.
Correct. But something else that saves a lot of money, and you have to take your time with it, is the old 4 mica tops. You don't have to replace them. Now you can paint them.
Paint over. Right.
Yeah. We've had clients even paint their appliances.
Yep.
Because you can get appliance paint to change the color.
Okay. Well,
the biggest thing about that is do not paint. You can paint your countertops in your house, but do not paint your appliances inside the house. Because see, that's epoxy paint.
Yeah, you will.
The countertop epoxy you put on with a brush and roll it.
Yeah.
The appliance epoxy you spray. So wear your goggles and your face mask.
Right.
But it's cheaper than buying a $1,500 refrigerator.
Right. Well, exactly. And but even if you change out, you could set yourself up for a plan ahead and change out appliances, one at a time for the next 3 or 4 years. And that would be a slow remodel that you can, again, kind of piecework it together. It doesn't all have to be done at once, and that's going to make it a little easier on the budget.
Well, true. And the thing about it is when you start changing your appliances out, you also could be even though you're spending money on the new appliance, you could be saving money on your electric bill.
Right. Yeah.
Because they say that every 5 years, the appliances get that much better as far as energy efficiency.
There you go. All right. Well, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So,
one thing we hadn't hit on, changing your hot water heater out.
Yeah, well, that's definitely one of those things. I mean, it's especially here in the mountains, we see that with the hard water and the sediment and the minerals rather that get into it. And I saw not too long ago, and I don't know where I saw this. You may have shared it actually, but it was a hot water heater, and they had replaced it, and so they went ahead and cut it open, and the bottom 2 elements was full of like this built up calcium. I mean, it looked like a sandstone rock in the bottom of it.
Correct. That's because the anode tube went bad in the hot water heater, and they recommend replacing that anode tube every 5 years.
Yep.
And I never have done it on mine, and I think I really need to. And but I do drain my water twice a year out of my hot water heater.
That's one of the things that a lot of people don't do. That's a simple maintenance task. Doesn't take a lot of time, even if it's installed correctly. It doesn't take a lot of time. You hook a hose to it and drain it, and it makes a big difference.
I'm even hearing people talk about draining their hot water heaters in the city because when a water line breaks, they get so much sediment in the line. Well, it's got to go to somebody's house somewhere down the line.
Yeah, makes sense. So,
but hey, can I go back to the countertops?
Yeah.
You know, I was looking on the Lowe's site here at countertop paint,
Mm-hmm.
and they have some cheap paint for $36.81. Okay, and it's a pint. Well, I would almost guarantee you that that wouldn't hold up very well over time. Okay,
Sure.
but then they've got some countertops uh, refinishing kit that go all the way up to $199.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's a whole different thing that you can put on.
Yeah.
They even got one for $299. But the point of it is, yes, you're paying. There's a whole difference between $299 and $36 on longevity of what your countertop's going to be, because it eventually it will wear out. We actually, my wife did paint our countertops. We had the old fake stone look from
Yeah.
1964, and believe it or not, it's lasted 10 years. It
Nice.
needs to be done again. But now it's going to be a lot easier to do the countertop
Because they're already
because
yeah.
the epoxy's already on, and all you got to do is rough it up.
Nice, nice. Well, and there's a lot of alternatives out there now. If you replace the countertops, you know, granite is sort of the big the one everyone likes, but some of these soapstones and quartz and even concrete, I think are just as nice, and they work just as well, I guess you'd say.
What is the Skyle Stone
Mhm.
quartz? It came out. It's a manufactured product. It's a very good countertop. For all you framers out there, make sure you turn your studs all one way in your kitchens, anywhere a cabinet top's got to fit. And but they look good. I like granite. Granite's quite expensive.
Yeah.
You know, they're both expensive.
I'm more and more a fan of the concrete myself, though, for countertops. If they're done correctly, I think they look really cool. But
And you know, even the Formica, you know, I used to do a lot of Formica cabinet tops when we had oil-based glue. Once we got away from oil-based glue and we went to water-based, I quit,
right,
because you could put a countertop down, uh, come back the next day and the Formica could be up.
Yeah.
Because it turned loose. If you have an old countertop that's got a bubble in it, you can take an iron and put on it, reheat the glue, and it'll reactivate again.
okay,
The old oil base. But the roll tops you get from Lowe's and Home Depot,
mm-hmm.
nice tops, you can do yourself, and you can buy them. The hardest thing about them is you might have to cut them, but if you cut them, be sure to turn them upside down.
Right.
And you know, I have been in a situation where the corners don't fit good because your house isn't square. And you know, if you take a lot of patience, you can turn that top upside down and cut that countertop to fit. And then you got to clean it up with a Norville sander.
Right. Okay.
We had a lady when I first went into business for myself, and she said, "I've ordered my countertops." They even had the factory guy come out. They never, 3 times the countertops came and they wouldn't fit. And she said, "They're not going to replace them again." I said, "Well, why not? The factory's the one that come out and measured them." They said they just can't because the house is not square. And so I said, "I'll try it." That's the first time I ever changed the countertops on the angles of the house being out of square.
Right.
And I said, "Do not come and interrupt me while I'm in there working." She
Yeah.
said,
No.
"Why? I need to ask questions." I said, "No, they're not going to replace them." And so, believe it or not,
One and done.
little trial and error, and knowing that you have to you tape them from the face side, you turn them upside down and cut them, but you got to cut them with a 60 tooth blade, real fine.
Sure.
And what I used for a straight edge was my 4-foot level.
Nice.
I didn't use no line. I used level. I always cut my Formica with a level and an edge trimmer. And we did some countertops back in the late 80s for IRC that were 27 foot long. And we did a great job doing it with the level and the trim.
Nice. All right. Well, before we start to wrap things up, one more that I want to talk about. I think that's really easy. As far as a do-it-yourself type thing, and that's changing some of the trim out, whether you're adding to it, changing the baseboards, adding crown molding, or replacing the crown molding. All of those trim pieces are something that you could do in one room at a time. And paint. I mean, there's paint choices. There's wood finish choices. I mean, you there's a lot of choice that, and again, just a relatively inexpensive renovation that really changes the room up.
One of the easiest and cheapest out of all of them is a chair rail. Okay. And that way you can, if you put it as a 32 inches high, 36 inches high, whatever, most time are 32 inches. That way your bottom underneath can be one color paint, the upper can be. The hardest out of all of them is crown mold. Okay. And you can do that with a not electric miter saw, but a box miter saw.
Yep.
Okay. But if you got to learn how to do your corners. And when you use a box miter saw, which is a hand saw,
yeah,
you have to learn to cut upside down to get it to work. Like the modern day miter saws, we all cut flat because they've got two angles on there for inside and outside.
Yeah, because they're compound. Yeah.
And then, YouTube will teach you how to cope, because it's a lot easier to cope and get things right than it is to miter in your corners, because when you cope, it doesn't make any difference if your corner's out of square or not.
Right. Because you're matching it. Well, one thing I like, and this goes back to that more of I guess that rustic look, it is, but I think it looks really good if done right, is not like your traditional fancy, if you will, crown molding, but just putting a piece of trim up at the top of the ceiling, square pieces, I think if done correctly can look good too.
Correct. What we did on the house this last summer was they wanted one before for crown molding laid flat, then they wanted a 1x2 put on top of it. So now
you get a little profile.
It had a profile to it.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of options out there.
Yeah.
I'm a wood man. I like wood. But you have MDF out there. Okay. You can use it. You can get it different sizes. It's a lot less money. It's already primed. The biggest thing about MDF is if you drive a nail in it, you have to do a little sanding, a little puttying.
Right.
Do not use it around wet places.
Yep. Well, I think that about wraps things up here on All About Home Construction. Again, we appreciate all of our listeners out there, and we'll put this out on the Facebook page as well, so you can go back, you can find all of them there. But wherever you listen to podcasts, All About Home Construction, we'll put this on YouTube and all the iTunes and all the other cool places, and share it with friends, right?
Yep. And thank you for listening to us.
That's it. Well, Randy, stay warm, and we'll see if we can't get a live radio show in next time. And hey, that's what technology is all about. That's why we like the podcast. So
hey, we're growing up a little.
That's it. So thanks again for listening to us, and Randy, I'll see you next time, man.
All right. Bye.